Hello. So this is going to be the video for the first module of Word. So basically I need to share my screen and I need to start a Word document. So let me do that. And let me start the Word document that I need. So, well, before we start the Word document, let me talk about what Word is a little bit. First off, Word is an application program, which means that it's a program that has a particular function. And Word lets us create not Word document. It does let us create Word documents, but it lets us create text documents. Now, it also lets us work with images and do editing of images, but it's not really a image editing program. It's a word processing program. It lets us work with words. So let me start Word. I should have a copy of it right here. And it's on the wrong screen. There we go. So let me maximize that. And then there we are. So we typically start with a blank document. And what we see is the screen. And so the big part of the screen here, the white part, is just the page that we're going to create. It's like a piece of paper. Secondly, you may notice that I have some rulers here. Those rulers, if you don't have them, you probably need them to do the assignment. So you have to be careful that you have them. You can get rulers from the view ribbon. And in the show group, there's a ruler thing. You can turn them on and off. Now, what do we have in the top left corner here? This is called the Quick Access Toolbar. And the Quick Access Toolbar has the Save button on it. It has Undo and Redo. And mine has some other things because I've customized it. Now, if you click this little Customize Quick Access Toolbar menu, I typically add Quick Print, Print Preview and Print, and Spelling and Grammar, which I haven't done yet. So I'm going to add the Spelling and Grammar. That gives me like one button access to those things. So instead of, if I want to print a document, going to File and clicking Print, and then clicking Print again, all I have to do is click Print Preview and Print, and it takes me there immediately, and then I can click Print. Or if I don't need to change any of these settings and I don't want to see a preview, I just edited it and I want to print it again, I can click on the quick Print button, and that will just print without asking me anything. So it won't show me anything. It'll just print it. It'll send it to whatever the default printer is. So that's the Quick Access Toolbar. Remember that. It's important. And by the way, it's awesome if you know how to modify it and put things on there that you use a lot. And I use spell check. By the way, the reason I do spelling and grammar check here is because the other way to do it is to go to Review and click on it. So it's really a two-step process, where here all I do is click on it. It's a one-step process. I don't have to leave the home ribbon. So let me talk about these ribbons here. Word, Access, PowerPoint, and Excel all have ribbons, and we can access multiple ribbons just by clicking these little words here. So here's the Design ribbon, here's the Layout ribbon, here's the Home ribbon, and the Home ribbon is the one that we use the most. And every ribbon has a bunch of controls on it. And a control is basically, well, this is a button. It's the bold button, right? You click it to make stuff bold. But it also has a thing for font type, and this is not a button, it's a drop-down menu where you can pick a font. The same thing with the color. It's a button, but it has a little color palette that you can bring up. So these are correctly called controls. And all of the controls are grouped together They're organized on each ribbon. And they're organized into groups. They're called groups. So this is the font group. And see, in the font group, I have the font size or the increase and decrease font size buttons. I have a paragraph group. In the paragraph group, we have the alignment buttons and the list buttons, etc. There's a clipboard group. If I go to, say, the insert ribbon by clicking the word insert, then I have an illustrations group. I have a tables group. I have a pages group. So there are different groups, and every ribbon is organized into groups. What else? Down at the bottom, we have some zooming, a zoom bar right here, which I never use because I use it with a mouse. So one way to zoom in and out of a document with a mouse is just to hold down the control key and use if you have a wheel, use the wheel, and you can zoom in and out. That's much faster than going down here and trying to move this back and forth. There are some different views. Oops. There are some different views down here. There's the web layout view if you're creating a document that's going to go on the internet. There's the print layout view, which is the kind of the normal view. And then there's the read mode, which I guess kind of, well, there's nothing on here. So I should have something in my text. So my actual content. So I don't have any content right now. Let me go grab some. So I have the files for this chapter on my flash drive. So I'll go to my flash drive and I should find it. Nope, that's not it. I should be able to find them here somewhere. School documents. Did I put them in CIS-1? Data files. There they are. So I do have my data files. I'm going to copy those onto my desktop. So when we see here, let me grab one here. Where's a Word document? Word 1.1. I'll just open this, which is typically the way that we open a program. If we're editing a file, we double click on the file itself and it opens the file in the program. Instead of going file, open, and going and finding it. So, what should we do? There are two ways to save a document. If you want to make a duplicate file, like you have to do with our assignments where you have to change the name and create a file that has the same content, but it has a different name, then we use the Save As. So we go to File and Save As, and this will let me pick a place. Let's say I wanted to save it to my desktop, but it also lets me change the name of the document. So I'm going to cancel that. I don't know why that had a name. If you just click Save, you know that it just modifies the existing file, the content of the existing file. Now, whenever we're working with a program, there are really, three steps. The first step is to get your content on the page. So you type it up if it's a Word document. And you don't worry about what it looks like. Because that way we can focus on one thing at a time. And a lot of times if we start typing and then you go, oh, this could be centered and this could be bold and this could be that, we lose our train of thought. So the best way to do this is to do your content first. Get everything on the page. Then we can go to step 2, which is to format it. And basically what that means is we can then move stuff around, we can edit it, we can make things bold, we can center stuff and make it look nice. That's what formatting is. It's just making things look nice. Doing a spell check and all that kind of stuff. And the third step really is when you have your final product, you want to make sure that you save it. And I say that the third step is a little bit weird because we kind of save in between two. We can be working on something and save it, and it's not our final project, final product. But remember that the last thing, when you've got it the way you want it to be, the very last thing you do is you save it so that it saves all of those changes that you've made. So create your content, do your formatting, make sure you save your end product. Now, there's a whole page on the book here. This thing right here, let me zoom in a little bit. So I'm just going to use the control and I'm going to zoom. And there's a little blinking line here. That's called the insertion point. And you can move the insertion point around your document by using the arrow keys left and right, up and down. Or you can use the end and home buttons. They should be above the number pad. If you click home, it will move the insertion point to the beginning of a line. And if you click end, it'll move it to the end of the line. And this can be, I like keyboard shortcut. I like to use the keyboard. And this is a little, oops, I pressed delete instead. So let me click my favorite button, which is undo, and then click end again. You can also use the page up and page down button. So here's page up, that takes me to the top of the page. And if I go page down, it takes me down to the bottom of the page. If I had multiple pages, this is an easy way to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, go through all of the pages fairly quickly. And obviously there's one other way, the way that I haven't mentioned, which is to move your cursor and just click where you would like the insertion point to be. So that's kind of how we move around. And I use a combination of those things all the time, because using the mouse is not always the most efficient way. Now, having said that, when we are formatting text, there are 3 steps. Again, 3 steps. The first step is to highlight what it is that you want to format, to change. The second step is to apply the formatting to that. And then the third step is to make sure that you click off of it so that you can actually see what you've done. And the reason I say you've got to click off of it is because when you highlight something, it shades the background. So if you change it to a particular color, you won't actually see what the color is because it kind of has a gray overlay until you click off of it again. So how do we select stuff? Now, you guys know the obvious way, which is to click and drag, right? We click and we drag, and then we didn't get the whole word. And then we click and we drag and we get the space in between the 2 words, and then I don't want that, and so we click and we drag, and then we get what we want. So that's one way to do it. Now, there are some shortcuts, and these are good to remember. If you would, the first one you might know, and that is, in order to select a word, you double click on it. So if I want to select the word in, I just double click on the word. Just move the cursor onto the word, oops, double click. So that's more efficient than dragging, clicking and dragging. Secondly, you can select a paragraph by triple clicking. So 1, 2, 3, I've selected the paragraph. If I scroll down here and I go 1, 2, 3, it selects that paragraph. Now, a paragraph in Word is any time that you've pressed the Enter key. It's very important to remember because of the formatting things that we're going to be doing. So anytime, and paragraphs get formatting, special formatting, new paragraphs. So anytime you press the Enter key, you get a new paragraph. So that's why if I double click on this line of text right here, tips for job seekers, oops, I triple click, sorry. It highlights it. Why? It highlights it because it's a paragraph. Even though we see it as one line, so we see the importance of emotional intelligence as a line of text, Word sees that as a paragraph. So when I triple click on it, you can see that it highlights it. Now, what if I just want a line of text? So I only want to work with this middle line here. Well, there's an easy way to highlight that too. If you put your cursor into the left margin and you click, you can see that you can highlight one line of text. Whether it's a paragraph or whether it's part of a paragraph, it doesn't matter. This is also an easy way. If you click and drag in the left margin, you can highlight multiple lines. What else? Oh, I know. What if I want to highlight everything because I want to change the font type? So the easy way to do that is to use the keyboard and to use the Control A for all shortcut. So you hold down the Control key and the A key, and it will select everything in your document. And see, I'm not lying, it did. A lot of you know that one too. We don't use it enough. Now, when you select something, when it gets highlighted, you will see this little mini formatting toolbar. That's what it's called. And it has some commonly used formatting options on it. So whatever you select, whether you select the line, see it's there. You double click on a word, it's there. You triple click on a paragraph, it's the first thing that you'll see. And basically it's just so that we don't have to move up to the ribbons all the way up here in order to make something bold, right? I don't have to go up here. It already is bold, or to unbold it, or to change the color of something, etc. So selecting text is important. The other thing that I should mention at this point, I'll stop a little bit, is that there's a button right here in the paragraph group, and it's the top right button. It's the Show Hide button. And basically what this does is it turns on the formatting marks that are part of a Word document. And this little symbol here means new paragraph, which means that the user, whoever created this document, pressed enter here. And see here, between this line and, or this paragraph and this paragraph, they pressed enter twice. They pressed enter here to get to here, and then they pressed enter again. So when you're editing somebody else's work, sometimes it's a good idea to turn those formatting marks on. When you are working on our assignments, sometimes it'll say, select the paragraph, are you emotionally intelligent, and the formatting mark below it. So that means that you have to know the paragraph mark below it. So that would mean that I would have to highlight this. So you have to be careful, because a lot of times, because I don't know that there's a paragraph mark below it unless this is turned on. They could have done triple spacing here, and so, you know, there's just triple spacing between lines. I have no idea that they've pressed enter twice. So use that to your advantage, the paragraph marks. So I'm going to turn them on for now, and we'll see. Oh, I'll show you some other ones. That's a paragraph mark. That means that the user pressed enter. When they press the space key, you see you get those little dots. So that's pressing space. When you press tab, you get a little arrow for each time. And there's some other ones, but those are the ones that we see most often. And you'll notice, I don't know if you can see, but let me zoom in some more. You'll see that there's a little dot between each one of the words here, because the person who created this obviously pressed the space key. Okay, so let me zoom back out. So Control and my wheel, there we go. And then I'll come back up here to the top. So, here's some good things that you could, or some things that you can do. So one of the things is, that you probably don't know, is that you can change the case of words. So let's say that you want what do I want? I want this, are you emotionally intelligent in the workplace? This line right here. I want it to be all caps. So I'm going to come up here to the font group, and right here it says change case, and I can go uppercase, and boom, I don't have to retype it. Most of you would have retyped this, and that's unnecessary. You can also capitalize the beginning of each word without having to retype. What else can we do here? We can well, toggling, I don't know why we'd do that. Then we toggle the first letter. Capitalize, I could change it to lowercase, all lowercase, and I can do however it was written originally. Sentence case has a capital letter at the beginning of the sentence. So let's say that I wanted to make it uppercase. Boom, I'm done. So, helpful hint. What else? We have the three alignment, we actually have 4 alignments, so I'm going to talk about the alignments very quickly. Because we have a left margin and a right margin, we can align our text or whatever it is that we're working with the left, to begin at the left margin. So I'm just going to work with this, are you emotionally intelligent in the workplace? And by the way, you don't have to select the whole line. You can, because when you're aligning stuff, you can just put the insertion point in that sentence or in that paragraph, and it'll work with that whole paragraph. So this is left aligned. I'm going to right align it. So I'll click on the right align right button. Boom. So now it ends at the right margin. Left align means it starts at the left margin. I'm going to center it. That means that somewhere in here is the center of the page, and so it's centered between the left and right margins. And then lastly, I'm going to pick a different paragraph. I'm going to pick a longer one. Do I have a longer? Here I have a. Here, I'll pick both of these right here. The last one we have is called justify. And basically what that does is it tries to line up the text at both the left and right margins. So you can see, I think, let me click off of this, that each one of my lines starts at the left margin, but in every paragraph, every line but the last one is also lined up at the right margin. So this can dramatically change the way your document looks. Here, I'll just do it right here. So I'll select all of this text and I'll justify it. Well, I guess it's not changing it that much because I have so many paragraphs or my paragraphs are very short. So, you know, you really need to have more than 3 lines to get this to look the way it's supposed to. So I really don't have a lot of paragraphs that would work well with the justification. But justifying, remember, is aligning the text at both the left and right margins, except for that last sentence. And that's because usually the last sentence is shorter. So this would look very strange if I tried to stretch this, because that's what Word does. Basically, it takes this line here and it stretches it. And it does that by putting a little bit of extra space between the characters or shoving them together a little bit closer. And if we tried to stretch this line right here, then it would stretch everything so far apart we couldn't read it. So I'm going to click undo a couple of times so that I can get this back to the way it was. Oops, I went too far. Oh, I can also press redo, right? That redoes whatever it is I did. Okay, now I'm back to my document the way it was when it started. So, what else can I do? I'm not going to worry about viewing and navigating the document. Although it does tell you that you can go into the file menu, which is actually called the backstage view. I don't know why. And you can go into info and you can see that there's all kinds of properties of this document that are being kept track of. So the size, the file size, how many pages there are, how many words there are, my total editing time, how much time I've spent editing it. I can add a title and some tags so this becomes more easily searchable. It tells me the dates, etc. The author, I can add an author, etc. And there's all kinds of other stuff here that I can do. That's all on Word 114. Cutting and pasting text. Copying and pasting text. So let's talk about the difference. And some people do this all the time, and they do it wrong all the time, and it wastes time. A lot of you only copy. So let's say that I wanted to move this line right here. Are you emotionally intelligent in the workplace? And I wanted to move it down. Let's say that I wanted to move it in between these two paragraphs. So I want to move it there. A lot of you would take this line and you would copy it. Then you'd come down to where you want it to be and you would press paste. Oops. And it'd be there. Then you'd come back up here and you'd press delete and get rid of it up there. Well, when you use copy and paste, basically you should only use copy and paste when you want to make a duplicate of something and put it somewhere else so that it's in 2 places or 3 places or 4 places. You don't want to do that if you're trying to move something. If you're trying to move something, again, we want to use the program in the smartest way that we possibly can to avoid wasting time. So I would press cut, and basically that gets rid of it. And then I would go to where I want it to be. Where did I say I wanted it? Here. And then I would press paste. And boom, it's moved. So cut and paste removes it from one spot and then puts it in the next one. And by the way, I never use these buttons, cut, copy, and paste. That's why, because it takes too long. Let me undo back to where I was. If I wanted to cut and paste this, I would highlight this and I would use the keyboard shortcut. Control X is cut. Control C, by the way, is copy, and Control V is paste, oddly enough. But I would press Control X. Then I'd go to where I wanted to insert this and press Control V, and I'm done. By the way, learning those 3 keyboard shortcuts, copying something, I use Control Copy all the time. A lot of times when you're trying to grab stuff from web pages online and put it into a Word document, the author of the web page will have disabled the, well, you all know that the other secret is to right-click on this and click cut or copy, right? A lot of times that menu, that right-clicking option, will have been disabled by the person who created the website. And that's kind of easy to do. What's a lot harder to do is to disable the keyboard shortcut. So a lot of times the keyboard shortcut will still work. So I use those three cut, copy, and paste keyboard shortcuts all the time. So Control C is copy. That's how I remember it. The one next to it, V, that's paste. And the one next to it on the left, the X, which I guess looks kind of like scissors, that's cut. And all I got to do is use one hand, Control with my pinky, and then I use, you know, CV, X, C, or V. So that is a smarter way. Oops. To do that. Let me get rid of these formatting marks. So that's cutting and pasting and copying and pasting, and the difference between the two. Now, we can also work with fonts, and we can change the font size, we can change the font color. I assume that you know how to make stuff bold, underline, and italicized. Those are those 3 buttons. So if I have some text, I can bold, italicize, underline. I can click on them again to undo it. And by the way, underline, you can pick like a double underline, or you can pick different underlines by using the little down arrow to the right side of it. You can do like little squiggly underlines. I also assume that you know how to change the font and the font size the old-fashioned way, which is just by picking a font here and then picking a font size, right, and then clicking off of it, and you can see what you did. I also assume that you can, you know how to change the font color. And by the way, each one of these colors here has, like this one is called Blue Accent 1 Darker 25. This one here is called Orange Accent 2 Lighter 60. This is Black Text 1 Lighter 35. So when you're changing stuff in your assignments, remember that it's going to say you need to change it to this. You need to change it to green accent 6 lighter 60. So you have to find it, and the way you do that is you put your cursor on the color and then you don't move it, and then for a few seconds that will show up, and so you can read what it is exactly. So what the heck, let's make that green. We can also highlight text. So if you want to, oops, let's just use this one right here. If you want to highlight something in a document, like you're using a highlighter, you can do that. We can also change the case. Decrease font size and increase font size. Now, why would you use those two buttons? Well, let's say that I have a document and I like the way it looks. But I've already changed the font size for some of this stuff, right? This is 11, this is 12, this is 11, this is 12, right? So my font, I've already got different font sizes, but I want to keep this the same way that it looks. So instead of changing all of the 12-point font to 13 or 14, and then changing all of the 13-point font to 15 or 16, I can keep the sizes relative to one another by using these two buttons. So if I click, and let me change something here, let me do this. Let me change this to a bigger font that we can see here. So that's now 18, okay? And then I'm gonna do Control-Alt, and I wanna increase the font size. So it's increasing the font size, so everything is going up 1 point or 2 points. It doesn't matter where it started originally, so everything stays proportionally the same. Or if I want to make it smaller, right? So it stays proportionally the same. So that's why you would use those two buttons, increase and decrease font size. Make sure if you're following the instructions in an assignment and it says use those buttons to use those buttons. Otherwise, sometimes it doesn't like it. Okay, so the margins of a document are the parts of the page around the outside, the four sides. By the way, there are four sides. There's the left and right margin, and there's the top and bottom margin. It's the part of the page where we don't print on. And you can change those margins by going to the layout ribbon. And the first, in the page setup group, your first control is called margins. And normal margins in a Word document are 1 inch at the top and bottom and 1 inch at the left and right. By the way, it's also a good idea to understand what the default settings are in Word. And the margins are 1 inch all around. The default font is Calibri, and the default font size is 11. And the line spacing used to be single space, but now it's 1.15. So those are the default settings. Some of you don't like those settings. So I want to let you know that you can change the default settings. You can make whatever it is that you want to be the default settings. So when you click New Document, it'll be 12 point, it'll be double spaced, and it'll be whatever font is your favorite. So you can modify this, and I'll show you that at some point. Probably not in this lecture. So we have normal margins. I can make them narrower, so I can change them to 1/2 inch. I can make them moderate, which changes the left and right to 3/4 of an inch. Wide, mirrored. Now, mirrored basically means that the margins on the inside are smaller, or no, bigger, I'm sorry. It's if you're gonna put a book together, you want that inside margin where you're gonna staple it together and you're gonna open it like this to be bigger than the outside margin at the outside edge of the page. Does that make sense? So that's what mirrored is. The old default, and then you can click on custom margins. And if I click on custom margins, you can see that I can change this to whatever I want it to be. Top left, bottom right. And by the way, it will show me a preview. So if I want the top margin to be 2.7 inches, it's going to look like that. I'm going to hit cancel here. Oh, by the way, I can click set as default. So I can customize here and set it as default. So I'm going to hit cancel. Okay. And then every time I start a new document, that's what the margins would be. Bullets and numbering. Again, this is a place where pressing the enter key and what is a paragraph and what isn't a paragraph becomes important. So I'm going to go back to my home ribbon and I'm going to turn on the formatting marks. And what it's saying is it's saying that I should take these 4 lines. No, I should take these 3 lines right here, and I want to create a list. And so there are 2 kinds of lists, a bulleted list and an ordered list. Now, that's what they used to be called in Word. They're not anymore. But basically, an ordered list has an order. So ABC, 1, 2, 3, Roman numerals, whatever we've got. An unordered list just has a symbol, what we call a bullet, in front of it. So if I want to create a list, I have to go to the paragraph group, and I can do numbers. I can also just do bullets. And those are the default bullets. Let me turn off my formatting characters. And you can see what happens when I create a list. And by the way, if I click this little down arrow here, I can pick different graphics. I can actually define what a bullet is. And so I can pick a symbol, like I could pick that as my bullet, and click OK. And see, that becomes my bullet. I could also click, I could have a picture. Do I have pictures here? I don't actually have any pictures on this computer. Maybe I have some default ones. No, I have nothing. These are videos, so yeah, I don't have any pictures. I could also use a font, so I could do something weird. Okay, so I'm just going to click, I'm going to hit cancel, and I'm going to do, oh, numbers are the same. I can pick Roman numerals. I can pick ABC. These are all ordered, so I don't know why it says numbers, because A, B, C, D, E, F, G are not numbers. But so I can do that. Different ways of showing an ordered list. I can define a new number format. I can change the list level, which basically has to do with creating outlines. Let's just go with a Roman. Well, no, I'm supposed to actually create an unordered list. So I'm supposed to do that. And I actually kind of like these. Oh, by the way, when you have added a symbol or a picture as a custom bullet, it shows them to you here in recently used and in the bullet library up to a certain point, and then they kind of go away. Because you can see that one's there. So having said that, that's what a list is. That's a bulleted list. By the way, when you create a list, it changes the indents of stuff. So the bullets are actually indented from the left margin, and the text is indented from where the bullet is. And you can edit the bullets. So if I just click on one of the bullets, see how it highlighted all three of them? I could, for instance, change the color of those bullets to be like a green. And I could change the font size or the size of the bullets. Oops, now it's a little bit too big. So that they're bigger or smaller. I'll make them a little bigger. It won't look very nice, but then I'll click off of it and you can, oh, I can even make them bold. So I could make them bold and underline them. See? And by the way, it's using my squiggly line underline because that's the last one I used. Just go back to my regular. So you can format the bullets. Also something that most people don't know that they can do. Okay, so what else can we do? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so inserting a graphic, and then we have inserting a graphic, applying a theme. So then we're done with module 1. So how do we insert a graphic? First, we take our insertion point and we put it where we want the graphic to be. Now, sometimes we're going to move the graphic around, so it doesn't really matter where we put it. So I'm just going to put my insertion point after the S in Seekers here. And then I'm going to go to the insert ribbon, and I'm going to say that I want a picture. And do I want an online picture or do I want a picture from a file? Yeah, I want a picture from a file. So I'm going to just click pictures here. And then I have to navigate to where it is. And my data files, no, those are the 2016 data files. They were in school documents, CIS-1, fall 2019, office data files, and there it is. So which one is it? It's this one. And I'm going to click insert. So now it created the document, it created the image, and it didn't create the image, it put the image into my document, but it put it in it kind of the original size that it was. So now what I have to do is I have to resize this. So when I click, or actually when I insert it, we get a new ribbon. So there are picture tools, and sometimes you'll get new ribbons, and we get, it could be more than one. We get ribbons depending that have controls on it that work with that particular kind of object that we're working with. So sometimes we'll get more than one. We'll get a format and a layout ribbon just for pictures or for something else that we're working with. So here I have all kinds of things that are just with pictures. And they want me to change the height of this to 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to go over here to the size group in my picture tools format ribbon. By the way, I could just type this in. That would be faster, 2.5. I could have just done that, 2.5, enter, done. So it's changed the size of the image. Now, by default, when you change one size, the height or the width, it will change the other one with it in proportion, and that's to keep the images in proportion. You can turn that off, and the way you do that is that most groups have a little button down in the bottom right-hand corner, and so here I can say that I want to have the aspect ratio locked, which it is by default, or I can unlock it. And basically now that means that I can change the width or the height independently of the other one. So I could make this look really bad by changing the width like this and pressing OK. See, now it looks horrible. But I can change just the size of one. So I'm going to lock this again. Lock the, oops, I shouldn't lock the aspect ratio until I hit reset and press OK. And then I'll go ahead and lock the aspect ratio and press OK. OK. I'm going to make this 2.5, 2.5, enter. My dog is snoring. If you hear the dog, if you hear snoring, it's the dog. Now, this picture isn't where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it, I'm going to click on it here, and I'm going to move it. And the problem is it's not really letting me move it where I want it to go. And that's because the way the picture is laid out. So right here, there's a little button, and it says Layout Options. And by default, images are laid out in line with the text. So that basically means this. The bottom of the picture comes after the S here. It's in line with this line of text, right? And I can't kind of move it in between, or I can't move it over here because it's always going to go to this line. If I do this, it's going to go between the N in often and impact. So it moved the right-hand side over to, it's in line with this line of text. Okay, so I'm going to change that. I'm going to change my layout option, and I'm going to say that it is going to be, let's just do a square. So I'm going to change the layout to a square. Now when I move this around, notice how it's moving in between the words in my sentences, my lines. And I can put this pretty much anywhere I want on my page, and it kind of makes the text wrap around it. I have a couple of options with that, text wrapping. I can just do a square, or I can make the text tightly wrapped to it, so I'll do that. That doesn't seem to have done much of anything, although I think the R is a little bit closer than it was before. I could make the text actually go through the image. Did it not do it? Or it is? I could put the image on top of the text, which I still haven't figured out why, and I could put the image behind it. And that sometimes when you have like some kind of logo, that's your company logo, or a watermark, and you have it really light, like if I make this, the only way this would make sense is if I would change this a little bit. So if I change the, let's say that I made this, lighter even than that. Yeah. See, there it might make sense. And then I could make it bigger and it would be in the background, kind of my company logo or whatever it is. It might look cool. But typically we don't do that. Typically we wrap this somehow. I like to use tight wrapping, and then you can drag this wherever you want it to be. Whoops. And the text will wrap around it. And it looks a lot nicer than it being in line. Then I can click off of that, and you can see what it looks like without. And then I can do picture effects. I talked about this when I was showing you the example for how to do this. So I could make this do that. I could put a border around it. I'm not going to. I could do a reflection. Let's do a little bit of a reflection here. Is that going to work out? No, I don't like a reflection. Let's do soft edges. Oh, I can't do soft edges with, I'm going to do soft edges, but I'm going to change this style here to be, my computer's being a little bit slow for some reason. I think it's because the beveled edge, it doesn't like it. So I can't really do soft edges and use these kind of, I kind of like that one. Yeah, I kind of like that one. go corrections and go back to the normal. There we are. Picture, no, not picture layout. Let's see, preset glow, soft edge, bevel. I could add a bevel. Although my style, my picture style is overriding some of these things. I can change the 3D rotation. Again, my picture style is kind of overriding these. And you can't see it because it's in the wrong spot. So we have all kinds of options here. Remember that if you need to choose one, the best way to figure out which one it is put your cursor on it and don't move it. And my computer's heating up or something. It's being really slow now. But see, it says inside top. This is inside center. If I go to glow, it says glow 8-point orange, accent color 2. Glow 18-point gray, accent color 3, right? So I can go to shadows. Oh, I did shadows already. There are soft edges. We'll go 2.5 point, 25 point. That's taking a really long time to preview. And then it didn't do much of anything. What else can we do? Well, you can crop an image. You can do text wrap here also instead of using the little button. You can change the position, although you can do that just by clicking and dragging it. What else? We can change the artistic effect, so I can make this look really horrible or nicer or weird. I can change the color. So if I don't like the color, the way it looks, I don't want it in color, I'm going to print in black and white, so I'm going to make it grayscale, or I'm going to just want it all monochrome. And by the way, you always have more things down here that you can pick from. What else can we do? I can always reset the picture here, by the way, too. No matter how badly you screw it up, you can always reset it to the original. I can change the image here. So I could pick a different one and just replace it instead of having to delete this and then import a new one. I've got it in the place that I want it to be, and I could just pick a different image and put it in there without changing the formatting. Remove the background. Oh, yeah, okay. Mark areas to keep, mark areas to discard, yeah. So we can remove the background of images too. And I did, see, I got some stuff to go away. So that's horrible, so I'm going to undo that. That's much better. So that's inserting a graphic. Now, another thing, and one thing that we don't work with very often, are themes. And theme basically is just a color palette. So let me go to design here, and I'll show you the different themes. And is this going to make any changes? Well, it's not just a color palette, it's a font type. There's all kinds of different themes here. But you can see that it's changing the font size, the font type, the colors. So if you notice my bullets down here that are colored are changing color depending on the theme that I pick. Basically, it's just a combination of formatting options. Ooh, yeah. So, and you can pick those, and you can, then if you don't like the default colors, you can change it to a different color palette that you like. By default, ooh, I cannot remember. What's the default theme? Office. And the default color, I think, is this first one. So that's the default color palette. So those, that's something to realize. Oh, one thing that I didn't talk about was that you have to do is changing the paragraph spacing. So let me go back to my other document here. And what happens typically is that when we press enter, not only does it start a new paragraph, but it actually adds spacing, extra space between the paragraph and the next line of text. So here is a good spot to see that. Or here is a good spot to see that. It's either there or there. So you can see that this is one line of text, and this is the second line, same paragraph, right? So if you notice, there's a certain amount of space in between these lines. But you can see here, between these two lines, there's extra space. And that's because by default, Word adds extra space after a paragraph. So when you press enter, I think it's six points. It adds an extra 6 points to whatever your line setting is. So if you're double spacing stuff, then it will add 2 spaces plus 6 points. If you're single spacing, it will add a single space plus 6 points. And so there are 2 kinds of paragraph spacing. They are in layout. And by the way, you don't have to go to layout. Oh, they're not in layout. Where are they? Oh, here they are, before and after. But you, on the home ribbon, if you go to the paragraph group, in the bottom right-hand corner, there's that little button, and that brings me to the paragraph dialog, and you can see that spacing before and after a paragraph. So here it's set to 8 points, and if I, set it to 0, you'll notice that this got less, there's less space. Now there's no extra space, it's just whatever my line spacing is. If I add more, and it's only when you press enter. And by the way, you can also do before a paragraph also. You can change the spacing before a paragraph so that, and typically we only do after. Like by default, when you start a blank document, you want to have a little bit of extra space between paragraphs. And the reason for that, by the way, is because we don't typically indent anymore. If you have everything spaced the same way, then every paragraph usually starts with an indent so that you can see where one paragraph ends and another one starts. But typically we don't indent all that much anymore. So what we do instead is we do this paragraph spacing. Now, paragraph spacing before a paragraph is typically used where I already have extra space, but I don't want to add a whole nother line. So this is too much, or that's too much, right? That's too much space, but I do want more space. So what I can do here is I can just highlight this paragraph and I can just add some spacing before it. So let's add 12, well, let's add 6 points. Well, no, let's add 12, otherwise you can't see it. So I'll press OK, and you can see it's going to move down just a little bit. And if I wanted more than that, I should have stayed with 18. I thought it was going to be too much. Let's go with 30. You can see that now I have moved this down, but it's not a whole line. So you can move things with that paragraph spacing before. I guess you could do this, use this paragraph and do paragraph spacing after, and that would move this down too, but it's not as precise. So that's paragraph spacing before and after. So there you go. That's the first lecture. I will do a lecture on Module 2, and I will do a lecture on Module 3. Again, if you don't know how to do something, You don't know, you didn't like my lecture, you're still confused, double check the book. That's your first other option. And your second option is to ask me, send me an email, or come to the office hours. Okay, we'll see you all later. It's nighttime, so I'm going to say goodnight. I'm going to stop recording, and there we go. First, I'm going to stop sharing.